Watch out.
Ah!
Hi there. Welcome to another episode of the Board Game Business Podcast. I'm your host, Richard Noon. I'm here as always with Jeremy Commander and Brian Hink. Today we're going to be talking about our top 10 ways to build your board game industry network. And I'm going to start with Jeremy. Give me your number 10.
Participate in community contests. That may be the Game Crafter contest, or they run contests where, hey, we're looking for a game design that fits this theme or fits this mechanic. It may be a contest on the Board Game Designers Forum. It may be a contest on BGG, or various game companies run contests from time to time for a particular game they're looking for. And when I say by participate in contests, even if you're not entering a design into that contest, or if you are, you should be active in voting for other people's games, commenting on the boards, contributing to that community event, contributing to that contest in a positive way. Whether you're helping playtest something that's a finalist and giving feedback, or you're just upvoting something that's like, oh, I've heard of this game, or I looked at this game and I think it's a really clever idea or a really clever theme, that participation, now you're giving something to that community, and that is going to open some doors for you or make you a participant in that will help you build your network.
When I play test a game, I always am very impressed with, it was part of this contest. It's something that, speaks to me as far as like another motivation to try it out. All right, Brian, what's your number 10?
Volunteer at convention booths. So, maybe you're at a point where you can already have your own booth, but if you don't and you're not there yet, volunteer with other people. Whoever that is, or whichever company that is, you'll get to meet the people who are behind the scenes. You'll have downtime where, or before the con, after the con, during just slow times, where you can just talk to them, ask them any question about how things work. Without even asking the questions, just being involved and seeing how it works, you'll learn so much by doing that. So spend at least a little time, instead of playing games or doing whatever you're going to do at the con, to just go help someone out, and then you build that connection too, that relationship. So those are definitely recommend that.
Yeah, you mentioned that 3 or 4 episodes ago we talked about our Gen Con wrap-up, and you talked about the different levels you had gone through to getting your own booth, and one of them was working at another person's booth and learning all those lessons so that you didn't have to go in and learn them all the hard way.
That's great advice. You intend to have a booth someday, working in someone else's booth. You'll learn from all their mistakes, see how they do their layout, how they do all their planning, and you'll have that education to deploy on your own future booth.
Let's reverse then. Brian, do you give me your number 9, then we'll move to Jeremy.
For me, it's running local events. So I used to run tournaments for games back in Minneapolis. And I would be when I moved up to San Francisco, I tried to help out at any any local events I could. I would just go to events, to whether it's a playtesting event where I playtest other people's games, or just go just to have fun and like Jeremy says, contribute to that event in any way I possibly can in a positive way.
Participating in those local events, maybe I go and I run game demos for them. Maybe I got the opportunity to buy some hot game at Gen Con or BGG Con that's not out in stores yet. I can run that and teach people that game, or there's a game that it's new and people are buzzing about it and they just want to learn it, and I've already read the rules. I can teach that game and contribute. I can bring snacks. Sometimes I'll bring some prizes to the organizer. I'll bring some games or something like that for them to give away as raffle prizes, and just to participate in that local game event and build that local community, because your local community is going to pay. You want to build that karma, build that relationship if you want them to play test your prototype games or to back your Kickstarter eventually when you do a Kickstarter. So that going to local events and supporting that's a great answer.
That was your number 5. To go to Protospiel and Unpub events specifically, but
I was thinking more. I'm gonna have to travel for those.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So for Protospiel and Unpub, for me, I run some locally, but I have to travel for a lot of them. I went to Protospiel Austin and Protospiel Dallas, the DGG Dallas, and Protospiel Houston and Michigan and Unpub in Baltimore. And I think going to one of those events, especially a Protospiel event, and even if you just traveled to one of those, I know it's an expense and you got to book that travel. That experience is a very worthwhile education into how other designers operate within the industry. I learned a lot education-wise, and I built a lot of contacts. Just playing those other designers' games at those events or meeting industry people, those contacts, I was now a familiar face. Oh yeah, hey Bob, I remember you. We both sat down and we played Julie's game. And as I exchanged cutting information, I might find someone who's willing to remote playtest my game, and I did that by traveling to a prototype event.
Give us your number 9, which I believe is one of Brian's numbers as well.
Yeah, I think my 9 is his 5.
Yeah.
Is be easy to find online and on Twitter. And this is something I learned from other people too. I hate social media. I don't like that at all. I'm a grump, I guess, in that respect, in terms of online stuff. But that's a big part of the board game community. I would participate in Board Game Geek. And I was on Board Game Geek and participate in things there, but I was not on Twitter, and I mostly created a Twitter account just for board games, to participate in the board game industry, and Instagram too. It's now the board game community is very active on Instagram. And if people are trying to contact you or ask you a question, that's often the first place they're going to go look you up, is on Twitter. You can on Facebook, but there's a billion people that might have the same name as you, where on Twitter I can look at your feed and see it's related to board games. Oh, I know I found the right guy. Like I wanted to contact Jason Tagmeyer, who I have not met in real life. And so the first thing I did is I went on Twitter and I searched and I found, that's him tweeting about board game related stuff. And I could message him or I could tweet at him. So if you want to be accessible to your network and to find other people, then you want to be in those online communities where the board game industry is. And so right now for me, that's Twitter, that's Instagram and BGG, which their community is active. And in each case, I try to contribute to that community. I'm publishing board game reviews or interesting articles that are related to board gaming or sales figures, so that I'm contributing content or contributing value and not just sitting there as a lurker or stating my opinions, that I'm actually providing some sort of service or information of value. I think Brian, I met Brian that way too.
I did.
And
yes.
I moved to the Bay Area. I heard you running stuff out there. I was going to looking to hook up with you, and that's how. If I didn't have an online presence, then I would have missed that connection.
All right, Secret Origins. I like this. Brian, anything to add on that?
One thing that you didn't talk about, but it's also pretty important to, especially the insider board game community, and that is Facebook groups. Because I know you are not a Facebooker, Jeremy, but there are countless groups that I find valuable, and both people sharing information, people asking questions, and then I try to answer any questions that I think I can help answer too. But James Matthew runs a couple of them. There's a board and card game designers group, which is good, especially just from the designer side. And then there's a publishers guild or something that James runs as well. Then there's like a Kickstarter games group. There's a few different Kickstarter groups which are useful. You can talk to other Kickstarter creators and specifically ask Kickstarter questions or talk about Kickstarter things. And so those are some great ones. I heard there's some on Google Plus, especially from the RPG side. There's some really good groups there. I haven't really been a part of those, but I think that's out there too. But Facebook, more than anything, those Facebook groups are extremely valuable. Probably the most valuable social media group or community that I'm in right now.
Jeremy, let's go to your number 8 then.
Placing encouragement above criticism. Or let me rephrase this. So when I meet with other game designers and I play their game, or often it's a new designer and they're coming to that prototype meetup and it's their first time there, it's really easy to call out all the things that are wrong with the game or that they're doing wrong. And you don't want to be Debbie the Downer, right? You don't want to be negative all the time. So you've got to make sure that you're finding ways to encourage the things they're doing right, or encourage them in their process, or to give that positive feedback and constructive criticism. Like if I play a Playtest game, I like to start with the things I like. Hey, here are all the things I liked about this game. I like this, and I like this, and I like that, before I give criticism about the aspects I didn't like.
In elementary school or something, we learned to give people a what was it called, like a compliment sandwich or something. Where you try to if you have something that you some sort of like constructive criticism, that you try to start with something good about it, then give them the criticism or the constructive feedback, and then end with something good.
You got to balance that out.
Possible solution.
Yeah.
I've always found those to be incredibly useful. When I was in the military, part of the thing was you don't, criticize something unless you can also offer, well, here's how I would fix it as well. Yeah. And maybe they don't go that way, but you're not saying like everything sucks. You're saying, you know, look, this could be better, and here's how. You know, like that's always a good way of, you know, framing criticism. Brian, do you want to give us your number 8 as well?
Wow, this is Jeremy's number 1 for me. And I think that's because he comes from the designer perspective. It's to play test other people's games. So many different ways to do it: local cons, remotely, download print and plays and play those. You know, we get a lot of game submissions too that I try to play, and you know, even if it's not a good fit for our company, I try to give, you know, some suggestions for improvement, and like Jeremy says, say what I like about it too.
Jeremy has his, you know, how to take criticism, and your number 8 is how to give criticism, and so that's a nice little back and forth there. Would you like to give us your number 7?
For me, it's just a comment on blogs and YouTube videos and Kickstarter campaigns, anywhere that people are talking about games, rather than having it be kind of a one-way communication where you're just taking in whatever somebody created. When you're also giving back, now you have that two-way communication that builds a much stronger bond.
Jeremy, your number 7 is also about taking in a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Go ahead and tell us your...
Do your homework to avoid wasting a publisher's time.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to go pitch my game at a convention or a publisher face-to-face, or even if I'm going to do like a blind one and write to them, I need to understand what kind of games that publisher publishes, what they're looking for now, what they're tired of or sick of. And there are various ways I can do that. I can ask them, what are you looking for in a more casual environment? I can try to reach them through speed date. I can talk to other designers within my network. What is this publisher like, or what are they looking for? I can look at what kind of contests they're running or things they've picked up recently. I get some podcasts on there. Tom Vassal's Board Game University is great for that. You hear from the publisher how they want to be approached, what they're looking for, and kind of their mindset. Or I've listened to interviews on the Meeple Syrup podcast with different publishers, and so that I can prepare my pitch to them or not pitch to them if it's not a good fit. And so I went and sought an interview for that somewhere in some podcast with that publisher before I pitched them, so I understand their perspective and their business.
Yeah, I'll chime in with, as a publisher, you know, especially when you've been doing it for a while, it really makes me take you seriously, though, if you have done your research and you say, here's what I know you've published in the past, and here's why I think this would be a good fit in your line, and here's my sell sheet, you know, that looks great and has all the information you need about the game.
If I pitch a game and it's a wrong fit for that publisher, I didn't do my homework, I may now sour that relationship with that publisher. Next time the publisher sees me...
That's the guy that doesn't get me.
That doesn't get me. 2 years later, I have a game that is a good fit for them, and because I didn't do my homework the first time I approached them, they see me coming up like, oh, not this guy again.
Only have one chance to make a first impression.
They only have one chance to make a first impression. And that leads to my number 6, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Which is observe publisher speed date. So even if now it's harder to get into publisher speed date because you have to make the cut to make it in. But I can go and watch. I can see what questions do the publishers ask, how do other designers pitch, and just observing the publisher speed date process, I'm going to gain a lot of information, a lot of intel about what publishers are looking about, what their questions they're asking, what they're concerned about. And so even if I don't make the cut into publisher speed date, or I know my game's not ready, I'm just going to go and observe and learn a lot about the industry and different contacts.
This reminds me of Brian's advice to work at a
con
during a convention. Yeah, see how it runs without having to have necessarily your skin in the game. Brian, let's go with your number 6. I think we got another crossover here.
Yeah, this is just to create content of some kind. It could be your Twitter feed and just make that really, really interesting. Like Cardboard Edison, or you can do the same thing on Instagram. I think, Jeremy, you have the I'm not sure if you're still doing it, but you know you did the pictures, and it might have been Tumblr. But where you would kind of try to review a game in a picture. Yeah, create a podcast, create a YouTube channel, a blog, something. Just create content and jump in, and I think you'll learn a lot from it, and hopefully you'll build some relationships that way.
That's my number 2, is create a resource or a service for the community. Maybe I contribute a podcast, maybe I contribute game reviews. I got to ask myself, what can I contribute to the community that's meaningful? Maybe I'm a writer, and I say, you know what I can do? I can help people write better rules. Maybe I'm a photographer, and I go, you know what? I'm a photographer, an amateur photographer. I want to make nice photos up on Instagram of what the games look like inside the box. Maybe I'm good at summing up a game, and maybe I'd say, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be a reviewer, and I'll review Kickstarter games, or I'll review games out there because I can contribute to the community that way. Maybe I'm an artist or a graphic designer, and I can say, hey guys, you can use this artwork I made, or these photos I made, or this clip art I made. I ask myself, what can I contribute to the community, especially if there's a need. There are, not to be critical, but there's a bazillion board game podcasts out there, and there are. I think reviewers, especially if you do like Kickstarter reviews, there's always need for more of those.
Let's continue on with you, and let's go to number 4.
Attend cons where industry folks have time to talk to you. So Gen Con is super busy, and Essen may be super busy too. So I can go to that con and pitch my game to publishers, but that can be really hard because their booth is crowded and they're trying to sell games, they're trying to launch their titles there, and their time is very limited. Or if I go to a more sleepy con, I might go to Origins, I may go to BGG, I may go to a local con, or even I've had some of my designer friends, they go to anime cons or a pop culture con, and they notice a few publishers are there with a booth, and they have enough time or downtime at that con that they can approach them and talk to them and just chat, like, how's it going? What's your new titles coming out? What are you looking for? Can I show you this type of thing?
And Brian, now you said this is sort of your number 3 and number 4. So do you want to expand on that?
Yeah. Yep, so that's really my kind of 3. So 4 is really go to bigger cons so that you can see everyone. Most of the publishers, designers, people in the industry are there. You can talk to anyone. So that guy or gal that you've been trying to get a hold of and talk to about some topic. 3 is just to go to the local cons, and it's for the same reasons Jeremy said, just that you don't have the quantity that you do at a big con, but you do have a much higher quality. I mean, some of the people some of the publishers that I've kind of built the best relationships with are those that I've met at local cons or smaller cons, not necessarily even local.
That leapfrogs us to your number 3. What would you like to talk?
Don't see the community as a vending machine.
Right. I was curious about this. I saw this on the list, and I need to know what you mean by this.
There is a philosophy that many people treat other people or life like a vending machine. If I can push the right buttons and put in the right coins, I get what I want. And there's no genuine desire to contribute there. It's just about, I just got to figure out the minimum effort I can do to say or to do or to build to get what I want. I'm just got to manipulate this vending machine so out pops what I want. And so I'd say that if you think of the board game community that way, then your contribution is not going to be meaningful or valued by others, or people will feel your insincerity, and you will not have a good reputation in the community.
I've seen that too. I've seen that quite a bit. You can usually kind of pick out the people who think that way, and at times I'll admit that I have felt that way too, and I never feel good about it if when I do.
It's easy to see in someone else. It's hard to sort of look inward and see it in yourself, but it's always a good idea to, we talked about it several times on the list otherwise, find something to put out there yourself. That I think that's to me, that's number 1 on my list. Like, of all these so far that we've talked about. Now, the only ones we haven't talked about so far is Brian's number 2 and number 1. So let's go for number 2.
Find your local gaming communities, not necessarily events, but just like the game nights. The people who are hardcore gamers out there, and you'll find out that if you can hang out with them, make a good impression on them. They'll invite you to their game nights. You can invite them to yours. You can find out about all the events going on that you don't know about. And so that's what I would recommend, just to go to your local game nights. Use meetup.com. It's the absolute best tool I've found to get a wide variety of gaming events. It could be RPGs. It could be designer nights. It could be LARPing. It could be whatever you want to do to enjoy games. And Meetup will have a group.
If I'm going to go the Kickstarter route, and I build a positive relationship with those folks, they may support me on Kickstarter, they don't back my game, they may tweet about it, or back me for $1, and that pays dividends later on. Or maybe I'm at a con and I'm pitching a game to a publisher, and one of those locals rocks by and goes, "Oh yeah, I love that game," and that's worth a ton right there. And so I want to build that positive contribution into the community, because it may help me later on. It may not. It may take a long time before I see some results from that. But I want to be a positive contributing member of that local community. It's a great answer.
Don't underestimate anybody's network.
Yeah,
Every network that you touch expands the trees outward, and you have many more people that you've essentially touched by just meeting with one person.
That transitions really well into my number one, and that is to help other people in the industry as much as you possibly can. And I know I feel when I know someone has helped me in the past, there's nobody I want to support more, no matter what they're doing. It kind of sums up a lot of what we talked about, I think, too.
Well, thank you guys for joining us today. I've been your host, Richard Noon. I'm here as always with Brian Hink and Jeremy Commander, and I'll see you across the table someday. Hey, this is Richard to remind you that you can check out our website at boardgame.business. Old episodes are indexed by subject to make finding an answer to your question easier. You can find links to our BGG Guild, other networking sites, and, if you feel like supporting us, our Patreon account. Donations are used for equipment to improve the presentation of our podcast. Thanks for watching or listening.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.